Good evening. Welcome to another Sky Blue Fans TV edition. Well, fans forum on Monday night. Were you happy with what was said with Doug King? It seemed to swing a lot of the room 50-50 from what I'm getting, because people went in there very, very angry about what was done to Mark Robins, and a few of them came out with a different reasoning. So we're going to ask tonight, did Doug King sway you in what he said? But certainly with that first question when it was asked of what went wrong with Robins and ADV Vash, obviously at a bit of a bombshell that they fell out. But we're going to go through it. We've got a guest tonight. We've got special guest Matt, and we've got Claudio, and we've got Vicky. And we've also got good evening all. We've also got a competition for you as well, which I'll quickly show you now before we get underway. You can get your answers in. I want to know who these players are there. There's number one. Okay. And there's number two. That could win yourself the Sky Blue Fans TV mug if you get them two players. Put it in the messages, please. And we'll have Victoria writing all your details down as we go along. Okay. Right, let's get into it then. Obviously, we all know what happened with the busy week last week with the departing Mark Robins. Doug King then faced the wrath of the fans on Monday night at a specially arranged fans forum at the CBS. There live was Claudio in the crowd, and so was Matt. We're going to come to Claudio first. Claudio, very good evening.
Evening.
Well, Doug King, did he sway you?
It's interesting because the way it all started through everybody, and before I say what I feel, and Matt was there as well, and he can clarify. Well, he can agree with me, but we were all asked if we got questions, and a lot of the questions were duplicated, and Lorna Bailey just went around and said, "Oh, that's already been asked. I'll so and so is asking that question." So, because some people said to me, "Why didn't you ask a question?" I thought, well, I know Matt did, but I just thought, well, the two questions I wanted to ask, Rob Gurney asked them both. So there you go. One was about where we're going on in terms of what happens now, and he asked that right at the end, and also the obvious one about why was he sacked, which is really what I wanted to know. But going on to that, what was really weird is that we've heard a lot of rumours over the summer. We've heard AD falling out with Mark Robins. We've heard that AD's falling out with players. We've heard that AD's falling out with Doug King. AD's a lot of falling out by the sounds of things. We've heard that they had to sort of sort it out and they couldn't. And then it's almost like when Doug came out and told his version of him, it kind of pieced it together. Now, the problem is everything he said is plausible, but it's only one side of the story, isn't it? Basically. Yeah. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying it is plausible, but it's only from one side. But it does sound like what happened was around this article that they fell out, Mark and AD, around, according to the article written by the Telegraph, Andy Turner. AD didn't like what was said. There's a bit of a row. And it's gone on to Doug. And Doug's turned around to Mark and says, well, you sort it out. Didn't get it sorted. Told Mark, okay, we'll get rid of him, but it's on you now. You get the number two in. And that's what came across to me. But the thing is, at the end of the day, he sacked him because we're not doing very well in the table, in the league. We're struggling. We're struggling. And he's basically saying he needs a tactician, somebody with a brain, and we haven't got it. And he promoted coaches from lower down the ranks up to first team level, and obviously he's not happy. And I think that Derby game was the end of it. I think he left that game thinking, like most of us did, 'cause it was poor. It was and even Mark said in his interview afterwards, and I've got to say, he looked shattered when he gave that interview, and he kind of looked like, where do I go from here kind of look on his face. And to be honest, I think he's done him a favour in the long run. I think Mark Robins, 7 fantastic years, 7.5 years. I think it's time for him to just step away anyway, because I think it wasn't going to be good for his health in the end, because he looks absolutely beaten to me. But But of course, like I said, we've only got one part of the story, which is Doug King's.
Yeah.
Has he swayed me? Well, I mean, considering the previous owners we've had, and even going further back when they never used to talk to us anyway, it makes a change, doesn't it? That you get somebody come out and speak to the fans. It does make a difference. But when he walked out, and Matt will say this, it was funny because everybody had an agenda. We're all ready to come out with stuff, and it was all like, "Come on, then, Doug, what you got?" And he come out with that. And he virtually answered all the questions everybody had in the first 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And it totally, what are we going to talk about now then?
He played a lot of people say he played a blinder because he quietened the crowd, didn't he?
Yeah, it was incredible. It's like the best form of defence is attack. And he sat there. I just thought he was going to come out and say, when Rob Gurney said, "Why have you sacked him?" I thought he was going to say, "Well, we haven't," and he did say, "I could say 23 points in 24 games." He did all that, didn't he? And we're not playing well, but he didn't. He went all the way back. And I thought, okay, he's trying to give us the whole picture here. Has he swayed me? Like I said to Lorna Bailey, it depends who walks through the door. If we get somebody come in and I'm thinking, happy days, I'll go with that. I wouldn't say I'll forgive him, but you're going to give him a chance, aren't you? That they got a decision right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was. I mean, Matt can tell you, it was bizarre that first 7 minutes.
Matt,
yes.
Good evening, mate. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. What was your reactions then for Monday night? I mean, how did he look, Doug King? Did he look impressive? Did he look as if he was in control of the night?
I mean, I was right on the front row. So, firstly, I think at times he did look a bit flustered, and he did look like the pressure was on. When he walked in, there was sort of silence until he sat down and he was introduced, and then we sort of clapped him. So he knew he was coming into, the end, the Colosseum, and you could see everybody was baying here because the emotion was high. It's only a week today that Mark was sacked, so. Doug came out Monday to meet us all. And like Claudio said, everybody had all these questions. I had two key questions. Firstly, what I'll say, there's a lot of rumours on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram about, whether they preordained or whether people could, ask their own questions. And we could, as Claudio said, as long as they weren't duplicates of what was being asked by the guests and the presenters, we were allowed to ask what we wanted. So like Claudia said, first 7-8 minutes, he throws this sort of curveball in that, we kind of knew but didn't, and it just put everybody on the back foot straight away. But I appreciate him coming out and sitting there. Him and Dean Austin. They had this whole crowd baying for them. My opinion, I think the jury's still out. I still think there's a lot more questions than answers, in my opinion. I think there's about a 50-50 split. That's what I thought.
I got that impression, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he must be telling the truth about things, because if he wasn't, he could get done for defamation of character, be held liable. So he must be telling the truth about certain incidents. It's how much of the truth and how much he's actually told us, because I still think there's a lot more that's going to come out. And when AD was let go or sacked, whatever we want to say, I think it was a couple of weeks after, wasn't it? 2 or 3 weeks after that he gave an interview in the Telegraph, saying, he loved the club and the fans and things. I'm not, like Claudio said, there's two sides to every story. Be very interesting to hear what Mark Robbins has got to say when he eventually comes out and speaks about what's happened.
Okay, all right. Then we'll come back to you then about the night as it went on. Victoria, you were listening at home. What was your reaction listening at home to it all?
I suppose to a certain degree, I'll probably share some opinions with the two guys. But to start with, I just was glad he actually said something, because I was slightly suspicious that this was going to be a sort of almost like a sort of politicians type press conference, and we'd learn nothing, and it just would give some platitudes, and then we'd all go home and think, well, that was a waste of everybody's time. So the fact that he actually came out and said something was a bit of a shock, but also something that was good to say. I think I'll probably share a view with Matt. Really, it seemed to me that obviously what he said about the falling out and some of the repercussions of that are obviously true, because he can't come out and make factual statements like that and lie in public if that's not true. So I've no doubt that that's happened, and I think, like Claudio said, that does make little bits fit together about what's happened. So it makes sense to a certain degree. And I think, unfortunately, sadly, as much as I'm still gutted that Mark's gone, and I'm still not really sure about the timing, because he says it's in part about the fallout and in part about performances, but we'd won 2 out of the last 4, and whilst we might have concerns about whether it's the right man going forward, especially if there's been a fallout and it's affected potentially the players, because that would be my concern if that's why we've been seeing some indifferent performances, because there's a fallout within the camp, sort of a taking sides, who's taking Aidy's side and who's taking Mark, and if that's been causing trouble, and ultimately that would have to see Mark go if that's causing an ongoing bigger problem within the club. Then sadly it was time for him to go, wasn't it, because of that? But from a performance point of view, there's teams like Norwich and Hull that were none and 6, so you're thinking like they're the sorts of clubs that would be making a desperate, like, we need to sack the manager today type of move. It just seems that when we've got no real plan for what we're going to do next, it just seemed a strange time to do it for me. And I think, like Claudio said, it depends who comes in as to what I think about that ultimately. But I think we didn't hear the full story. Doug didn't want to reveal anything that could be showing any blame on his part. I felt he didn't. So I think there's more to be said for me. But we're never going to know all of it, are we? And we probably don't need to. I think I put on Facebook this week, at the end of the day, this has happened now. Really, we've got to draw a line into it at some point. There is definitely more to all of this, but we can't keep on speculating forever, because it's doing the club no good. Like, this damaging, been all the sort of negative and sort of toxicity amongst fans and stuff. We really just need to draw a line at some point and say, right, it's done. And some are happy and some aren't, but we've got to just get on with what's for the best of the club now, don't we?
Yeah. Do you think we need to move on now?
Yeah.
Because I think it released a lot of the anger. But there was a lot of anger going into the meeting, I think.
Well, you were in the CBS car park, weren't you, Ken? Trying to sneak.
I had
a word with the bat. I said, "Don't let him in." I said, "Just don't let him in."
I
was in the concourse, trying to get fans' reactions. But
even Phil Rooney couldn't get you in. I thought it was quite funny.
Your name's not down, you're not coming in.
Yeah,
sort of thing. But now look, you were in there. How did you gauge the rest of the fans? You know, after that first question, do you think a lot of the anger went and more of people were relaxed?
I don't think the anger went. I think it was more. People were just sort of shocked that he'd come out with that. You know, he played it so well by saying that straight away. And I think we all got a bit flustered about, okay, we can't ask our first question. I've got to ask a second question. But I think the crowd did really well, and there were some really, really good questions asked. I mean, my first one was obviously, which was one of the key questions, were you aware of the backlash and what was going to happen? Which obviously he sort of said he wasn't, and on TalkSport he said he was, but that was asked by the presenters. I asked him if the new head coach would be able to bring in his own coaches, and would he have say in future transfers. He didn't answer the bit about bringing in his own coaches, but he did answer the bit about being involved in the transfers, and Dean Austin sort of took over. And I think when you're in a situation like that, you ask a question, you get the response, and it's natural for us to go, right, okay, but we didn't get that opportunity to follow up anything we'd said. It works.
I also found that,
time, we've only, it was restricted to an hour.
I also found that where we were sat, because I was in the same row as you, I think, it's too near the front. So Lorna's behind you most of the time, and you can't spend the whole evening looking round to try and see where she is to say, I want to say something. Yeah. So you can't go. In the end, I said, because Jack came with me, Jack Saunders from the Leamington Warwick Sports Club. And in the end, I said, tell you what, I'm going to sit back and just look at him the whole night, which is what I did. I kept looking at Doug, seeing his mannerisms and how he looked, and he was getting redder and redder by the end of the evening. He calmed down towards the end. but it's Rob Gurney's face that had me cracking up the whole time, because he just had disbelief on his face the entire time.
I think that's what you could see with Rob, and he was kind of looking over. And I know that, you know, if I can say this, I know Lorna was asking some questions which some people didn't like and some people did, but she really asked a key question, which I thought was a good question to ask. You know, if you didn't have a plan, you fired Mark Robbins here, and you haven't had a plan to, you know, replace him. He didn't like that at all. You know, he had an hour to come out with answers. Obviously, he's got a PR team there. Obviously, you know, it was very, very well played by Doug. At the end, I did say, you know, because we've got to say this at the end, he didn't shoot straight off. He hung around and still spoke to people afterwards. And I said to him, you know, we will, as fans, you know, thanks for coming out to speak to us. We appreciate that. As fans, we are going to, you know, to still support the boys and the club, because that's what we do. But if you don't get this right, you know, you're in trouble. And I think he knows that. He knows that.
Yeah.
Is that the last thing he heard as he walked out?
I think somebody else said something after I said that to him, but everybody was trying to get their second and third questions in at that point.
Shall I read some comments out, Ken?
Yeah, there's a load of comments coming in, Claudia. Let's go. Let's have a look.
Well, this is GLB boxing. Even all, great deck tonight. 4 aces or 2 jokers. That's Ken's one of them. I'll be the other one. Some Rich Overton. He says Andy Turner was authorised a member of the press team and of the press team present. Yeah, it's interesting. I listened to Andy's interview that he did today, and he was saying that the article was authorised, whereas Doug said on the night it wasn't. But he said there may have been confusion because he released that article in 3 separate parts. So he may have thought it was like a third part, a third interview, as opposed to the original interview or something. Mm-hmm. I don't think it really matters. I can't believe that AD and Mark Robbins fell out over a little, he called him basically. I can't believe AD fell out. They're grown men, aren't they? Don't they argue all the time? They're coach and head coach. You know, you can have different.
They've known each other for a long time. And I'm very surprised, you know, that hasn't happened before. And
exactly. So there must be something a bit more to this. They may have fell out. That's probably correct. Probably got angry with Doug. That's probably correct. You know, but you know, there's a bit more to it.
Well, there's other things I think lead to the path as well. You know, if we have a look at over the last year, I think things started to change. Even when the scouts changed, when Chris Badlam went left and went to Blackpool, Dennis Lawrence obviously went just before the Wolves game, and he was a big key part of that team. And so you're having these changes. I'm not saying that's the reason why, but there's other reasons why. You know, Mark and AD probably got to that point. You know, Mark's team was breaking up, and you know that's going to have some influence, or it's going to have some bearing on what happens. And then obviously when Mark loses AD, you know, right before the start of the season, and Doug explained, didn't he, that he'd given them both a 4-year contract. He told them to go on holiday for a few weeks to, you know, see how you get on. Mark comes back after 2 weeks and he says, I can't work with him anymore, and that does put Doug in a position. You know, he's put, you know, as I said, he trusted Mark to do that. You know, then Doug sort of said, hasn't he, that they couldn't get anybody in, they couldn't get another key coach in to help Mark, and that was Mark's problem.
Well, he said, I listened to it again today, and he said he couldn't get anybody across the line. So it sounds like, and there was people they thought were very good.
Yeah. So who's made that decision? Was that Mark saying, "Look, these aren't the right people"? Or was Mark saying, "These are the people I want," and Doug doesn't want them? Yeah.
Well, Mark did say that. Mark, I didn't get rid of him. Mark got rid of him. So basically, it's almost like they're advising me, and I just go yay or nay at the end.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's a bit like the transfers. We'll come to the transfer in a minute. I'll just read some more comments because I've got loads. Let me read these.
There's loads of comments coming in.
Right, all travel advice. I fully trust Doug. I have from the very beginning. He has a plan that is upgrading everything at the club and will take us to the Premier League. I also love MR and always will. This is from James Hollyoak. We all knew something was wrong since the Man United game. Now we know. Don't think it's fair that AD lost his job. Wayne Littlewood says, number 1 is my brother-in-law.
Oh, the competition. Oh, okay.
Oh, right. That's interesting. So we got Mostly Love of Music, Evening All. There is logic to why AD left, but it does not make sense that Robbins would be sacked after 2 strong away wins. Doug is hiding something from us, and Robbins needs to be free to speak. Day Sports Photos, was Lorna Bailey out of her depth as she sounded on the radio?
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you about that. The questions that Lorna Bailey asked. Do you think was he flustered with them questions?
I listened back to it today again, and the bit that I think annoyed Doug is when she gave a little laugh after he replied, and as if like you are talking to the owner and the chairman and the director of one, the board of one.
That's the thing, yeah.
And you should show some respect, really, as far as I'm concerned, because he didn't have to be there, and I felt she kind of mocked him slightly, which I think was, and I thought it was a bit uncomfortable, to be honest. And also, it followed on from when Rob said, we're running out of time and we've got half hour, let's get some more questions. And then she decided to answer 2 of her own questions. Where she said, this is what's been said on, or this is what people are saying. Well, not in the room, because you're not letting us speak. You know, you can't take over the show, else we might as well just leave the room. You know, I don't know what Matt thought.
Yeah,
I mean, I like Lorna. I get on with Lorna. I think she's great. I think emotion probably got the better of her. I think, you know, because we were asking those questions and then getting
a fan as well, isn't she? You know,
she's a huge fan. She's a huge fan, and you know, as is Rob. And as you say, you know, Rob was like this a lot of the time. You know, you could see that they've got to be. You know, they've got to hold back a little bit. They're the presenters of the show. They're working for the BBC. I think Lorna got a little bit emotional about it, and you know, it happened. You know, she said it, and Doug wasn't comfortable with it. It probably was a question that people hadn't thought of before because we didn't know. Some people were saying it was a knee-jerk reaction. Other people were saying he's planned this. I think if we hadn't have beaten, you know, Middlesbrough and Luton, I think maybe Mark would have gone before. I think Doug had it in his mind for a bit. But like Doug said, if he did have that in his mind that he was going to replace him, to go looking behind Mark's back was wrong. And he said that he didn't do that. Yeah. And that's why they're now looking for a candidate now after he's fired him. I think Middlesbrough and Luton bought him time. You know, Middlesbrough. And obviously losing to Derby was the final straw for Doug. You know, and as I say, my whole feeling is that we got some answers, but we didn't get a lot of them that we wanted. And there's still a lot more to this to come out. But Vicky's made a good point. We've got to move on now. You know, we've got a game a week tomorrow. You know, I know some people have said, I'm not going up again. I'm getting rid of my season ticket. I'm not doing this. Well, look, it's still our club and they're still our players. And even if Reece Carr is in charge a week Saturday, because I suppose we'll talk about the appointment later on. We've got to support him like Sunderland, and we've got to support the boys against, you know, Sheffield United a week Saturday.
All right, let me do some more comments. I'll get down there.
Might finish them tonight.
What an opening statement from Doug King. No one expected that at all. I do think he went into too much detail, which I think wasn't needed. I mentioned that at the end of the show, on the phone in at the end, actually. All travel advice. I thought the CWI opening short video with the WhatsApp voice messages was hugely disrespectful, saying we didn't trust Doug, etc. It was there to create a rhetoric that was to hammer Doug. Evening all from Doug Bolam. Even though Andy Turner has a lot to answer for. Not really, because nobody reads it normally. I mean, to be honest, so I didn't even know that article existed. Gibbo, good evening. Although it was difficult to see MR go with, can't rely on sentiment alone to move the club forward. I'm back in DK to get us where we need to go. Paul Cuttyford, listened to it twice, and I'm very sure that DK is not telling us quite a lot. It worries me who is taking advice from, but this is not the best squad we've ever had. DK can't do it all. All travel advice. There's no way Doug was lying. There was an argument between MR and AV, and there's no way Doug can fake the emotions he showed on the night. He would have been the best actor in the world. Chris Foster agrees with me. Well said, Claudio. So I'm not sure what it was, but thanks. Anyone else thinking DK should re-release a song with Rick?
Bit
Rick?
Shaggy.
It wasn't me. Wayne Litwood, whether you believe him or not, it's good to have an owner who's prepared to confront fans. Graham Cockrell says, the question I would have asked is, because of the bust-up, how did it affect the players? Was the players in two camps? Did some of the players who left more vocal in their opinions? So now it is what it is now. The players can come together under a new manager who was not involved in past problems. Graham, please put some commas in there. That was hard. We get some more comments coming up. Wow, we've got loads.
Maybe they won't. Well, we won't know. We won't know that, will we? Because not a lot of the players have came out and said anything about Mark Robins, have they? To be honest,
No.
But it surprised me.
I think I mean, to me, it feels like there's probably a bit of a division. I don't believe they all didn't want to play for Mark. I don't even believe, because if the players were, if they all were anti-Mark, they could have shown that more forcefully. We've been inconsistent this season, haven't we? And there's been inconsistent performances. There's been times when we've asked for performance and they've come out and they've given it. So I don't think that's not a team that don't want to play for him at all and they don't like him at all. There's more. I mean, it's all just. I mean, all it takes is a couple of people just not to agree, and it just causes a bit of division. It just causes a bit of trouble. And when you once had a harmonious dressing room, you've suddenly got one where there's maybe two sort of factions, and so that's why I think sadly it probably was the right decision, because if that's happened, until the source is gone, you're not going to resolve it, are you? And the way to move forward is to draw a line under it. But,
yeah, and I suppose there's a lot of players like AD, as we know, and a lot of players like Robins, so they were stuck in the middle, weren't they? And a bit difficult for a lot of them, I presume.
And no one wants to work in that environment, do they? Where there's like stuff going on above your head. Really, it makes it uncomfortable, doesn't it? But I don't know. I felt that Doug did that. I felt Doug said a little bit more than he had to. That was a bit anti-Mark. He tried to almost suggest that Mark was responsible for much more. And it allowed some fans who were probably of the same view to sort of jump on that rhetoric. And I don't really like that. At the end of the day, we can agree about certain things, but I don't think we have to start attacking a man that's done a great job for our club ultimately. Whether things have gone wrong at the end, there's still been a great 7 years before that, hasn't there? So
well, one question, just I was surprised that he said they interviewed several for the assistant manager, several people, and nobody took the job. Nobody. He said he had several applicants for the original post for assistant manager, but nobody actually took the job, did they? That was surprising.
Well, he said nobody. They never put anybody across his desk to say that's who they wanted. So you have to presume from that Mark didn't want them, is what he was trying to say.
Right.
Didn't he also say that none of them that they wanted to give the job to wanted the job because they wanted the number one job?
He did say that. He did say that. I think, Vicky, you just made some good points there. And we look at the big picture of this. You know, since Mark's return 7 years ago, we won't go over the whole history, but, you know, for years he was, working with a little backroom staff, with the training facilities not being too good. He's been working with, no budget, and making teams from loans and doing whatever. And over those sort of 4 and 5 years, and with AD there, especially with Dennis Lawrence, that team, the backroom team, everything that was quite stable. And he's built these teams over the years. Get out of League Two, get out of League One, established in the Championship. All this under the Sisu, leadership. And we got nothing from them. We never got any transparency or clarity from those guys. So when Doug came in, he was obviously going to make a lot of changes. And this season, in my opinion, there's been that many changes, just since the start of the year, just since Dennis Lawrence left, the amount of changes, the new coaches, the sports director, the sleep coach. We haven't even mentioned the sleep coach, have we? I don't know whether that's been a good or bad thing, because they have been asleep at some of the games. But what I'm saying is the back room has changed dramatically. I don't think this squad this year has had a few additions. I think last year we had more sort of settling in periods. So to lose AD and then to have these new coaches and to trying to work with Reece and George, and I'm sure these guys are qualified and they're good, but they're learning their trade as well. There just seems to be a lot of changes this before this season. And obviously, it's been a lot of pressure on Mark. You know, you could, like you said, Claudia, you could see it in the interviews afterwards. I think he was feeling the pressure.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think Doug King was annoyed because it was 3 weeks before the start of the season, pretty much, wasn't it? So he had to get a second in command, basically. He said he gave him all the tools that he wanted, as in the players he wanted. The false dawn was the Everton match. We probably thought we're better than we thought we are. This is what he's trying to insinuate. And we had supposedly a really good pre-season with all the players, which he didn't have before. So he probably thought, and I posted his interview where he said he doesn't want to be messing about at the start of the season, slow start, don't be messing around the bottom of the table or relegation fight. And he just threw a wobbler, didn't he, after the Derby match, basically. Thought that's enough.
Well, again, it's a split thing. I think some people said, you know, we've started slow the last 2 years, but Robbins can turn it around. I was on a BBC phone in a couple of weeks ago, and some guy said, look, you know, Robbins hasn't got the ability to turn it round. He never has. And I said, well, he has. I mean, he did it last year, got us to 9th and got us to the semi-finals. The season before, he took us from bottom to 5th. So he has got the ability to turn it around. But we can't keep having these slow starts. We can't.
But he didn't do it on his own, though, did he? He didn't do it. He had AD both times when they turned it around.
Exactly. He had AD and he had Dennis. So he had his back. That's what I was saying earlier. He had his backroom team around him. This time he was doing it with a different team around him and different players. And so I think there was more pressure on him to do it. Would I have given him a bit longer? Maybe.
And Doug kind of had a dig, if you like that. Doug had a dig at him when he kind of said they needed a quality tactician, is what he was saying, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Elite tactician. So he obviously felt that's what was missing, which is quite damning indictment, really, because he's basically saying, I don't think he's good enough on his own with what he's got, is what he said. Yeah. So I'll read some more of these comments.
Yeah.
Right, bear with me. I've had to go through a bit to find out where we are. Right, MR, could be Mark himself. The thing I thought was odd and could probably have followed up on was the bit about the board in the sacking press statement. Then he admitted there was no board at the forum. Well, we said, I mean, we were joking saying it was the board of one, didn't we, last week? Because we know.
Yeah, the question was asked, wasn't it? Who are the board of directors? And he had to come out and admit it's me, basically.
Yeah. So he's Trevor Merriman. Never ever going to happen, but would love AD back as our first team coach. I believe he played a big part in the development of Vic, Hamish, etc. James Hollyoak, we all have been moaning every show about Mark's poor tactics and subs, etc. He didn't have a clue. Just shows how much we relied on AD. This is from Dawn. 100% agree with Vicky. Whatever happens now, we have to support the team and show some positivity, whoever we end up with. Only time will tell if DK has made the right decision. This is from Day Sports Photos. Claudia said on the night, oh no, that we didn't need about the foot now. I disagree. DK has been blamed for breaking up the band. He wasn't Yoko Ono, and it was fair enough to him to say no. I listened back to it, and I'm not going to defend it because I said it, but I basically said it sounded like the dirty washing in public. That's what I was kind of feeling about it. I just felt like he obviously wanted to say Mark wanted him gone and he had to give a reason why. And he felt like he gave the reason, but he didn't have to give the reason.
You know, the other night, guys, afterwards, I mentioned this as something I was thinking about before the forum. And Vicky, so at the start of the season or the last 2 years, Doug has been selling this Premier League sort of package. You know, you can buy your £500 season tickets. You'll get the return if we get there within 5 years. I don't know what it is. It's aim high or something. Go big, aim high or whatever it is. And Doug, raises expectation, doesn't it? This does, raises expectation. We have done well. We've overachieved. We've done with 2 trips to Wembley in the last 3 years. And so Doug's sort of selling that. And that was the feeling. We all went to Stoke. And silly, you get a bit carried away, don't you? We're going to win here. We're going to be flying. I never thought we'd be top 2, but I definitely thought we had a chance for the playoffs. And interestingly, I think it was after the Norwich game, and we lost, didn't we? What was it, 1-0 at home to Norwich? It was either that game or the other one. And Mark came out and said, look, there's too much expectation here, right? There's too much pressure on these young players, and expectation's a dangerous thing. I don't know if that's word for word, but he said something along those lines. And I thought at the time, well, this is Doug's thinking one thing, and Mark's trying to play it down a little bit. I wonder if that's had an impact in Doug's thoughts or their relationship.
Yeah.
Definitely,
possibly.
We even spoke about that on here where we said about him saying our expectations are too high, and we said, well, that's a worry because the our owner was telling us we're going to aim high. So it's a bit of a mixed message, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt about the bar has been raised high, and we chatted about that in the pub after. The bar has been raised really high. And fans are expecting, especially younger fans, are expecting us. Oh, why aren't we at Wembley again? Why aren't we pushing? They
don't know what it's really like, do they?
Yeah, all us older ones are a bit more subdued. We know what it's not easy. But
I think you've got to, if you are doing that, as a chairman, as the owner of a club, and as a manager or as a head coach, you've both got to be singing off the same hymn sheet. If that's what you're going to be, some manager will come out and say, well, yeah, that's what we're aiming for. Mark was trying to keep it, in my opinion, grounded. And, I've still got some young players here. I've got some developing players. He knew the changes that had taken place. So that's more pressure on Mark and the players to perform. Like you've just mentioned earlier about Doug saying this is the strongest squad we've ever had in recent times. I'm not sure about that. I mean, I know we have injuries, but the bench at Sunderland wasn't particularly good, was it? And I think Doug came out tonight, didn't he, and said we had 6 or 7 injuries, which I get.
Did you remember he said about the last season? He said about the fall off, and he said everybody said we were knackered, and he went, "That's rubbish. We weren't." And he blamed the performance of the players on the management team, basically, and what had gone on is what he's trying to say.
Yeah,
he said, we're in and around the playoffs. We finished 9th with this squad of players we got now, and hoping they could redo the magic. Basically, he expects us to be up there. And
it's interesting, isn't it? We tailed off after the Wolves semi-final.
Hold on. And he said once he split the team up, that completely destroyed that, because he was expecting the pair of them to do the magic together. So he's blamed Mark Robins for all of it, basically, is what he's done. He's blamed it.
You're right about when we tailed off after the Wolves game. I think we won 1, drew 1 and lost 6, didn't we? Or something like that. It was interesting because Doug asked him for a cup run last year, didn't he? He said, I want a cup run. I want to generate, and he asked for it and he got it, but it definitely impacted our playoff chances. I don't think players wanted to get injured. They wanted to play at Wembley. They tailed off, and a squad. We were a thin squad again. But was that Mark's fault? I mean, him and Adi could only work at the end of last season with the players they had. And I'm not convinced this is the strongest squad we've had in years. People might disagree with me, but I think we're still short.
Oh, I think we're short. Definitely, at least another 2, possibly 3 players.
Yeah.
Sean Lewis, Doug came across very well, in my opinion. I went into the forum very angry and wanting answers, which Doug provided. Glenn says, bit disappointed that the club are restricting access to players and staff for CWR and Andy Turner since the summer. Nation Radio. Nation Radio Coventry, apparently, according to Doug, he mentioned marriage, which means AD tried it on with Mrs. R. No, not at all. He's on about them too. Glenn Watkin, do you think if Body was still around that they'd been able to get Robbins and AD to make it up? Possibly.
Don't know. It's hard to say that, isn't it?
Yeah. Dawn Cook, DK made some comment about MR and AD fallout, mentioning a woman. No. I've heard rumours about what that was. They could just be rumours, but Defo Phil was more than what Andy Turner said. He was talking as a couple that they are married. That's what he was on about, like a divorce.
Yeah, because they know each other for so long time.
Yeah. How did AD and Mark fall out over the article? If they had the same experience as me reading it, they only got halfway through before losing my rag with the clip articles and stupid pop-ups. Andy Costello, he says, I didn't believe any of it. It's all about DK and Austin blaming MR for absolutely everything. I just don't buy it. Bring in David Moyes, says Lee Beckett.
Mm. Well, we'll talk about possible replacements
In a
shortly.
moment. James Hollyoak, she didn't sound professional at all. DK, as Doug Bowman thinks, I think DK has left the door open for a new coach to maybe bring some of his own staff in. As it said, it was MR's decision to promote two of the junior coaches, not bring in new ones. P. Lol. I don't understand why DK wasn't more forceful in ensuring a suitable coaching replacement assistant manager wasn't in place before making the decision to sack Robbins. I think he didn't, because he promoted the two guys from the lower ranks, as Ken said already. The article wasn't even that bad or insulting to Robbins. Just it's a strained relationship at times, which you expect. I want... to be honest, no, a number two needs to challenge, not be a yes man. And Jack Saunders, he was there with me. He says Monday was an eye-opening. Will be an interesting 18 months to see where we are at the end of the 25-26 season. Back the lads, coaching, and the new guy play at Sky Blues. Yeah, the stadium question was a waste of a question, not a time or place for it. The original email I got from the club said, because originally you have the supporters forums meeting. It's not just the supporter groups, as in Bedworth and Leamington and Southam and Cowden and Rugby. It's also the disabled groups and all the other groups that, that we basically call yourself a supporter group. And we've got a meeting at the end of the month. But they brought this one forward, and now we've still got the one at the end of the month as well. But it was like an emergency meeting specifically to talk about the sacking of Mark Robbins. I didn't expect to see Dean Austin there. We were told he was there on the night when we got there, because we were counting the seats and the microphones. We got, there's an extra one. Maybe it's the new manager.
Going to wheel him out in front of the crowd. That's what a lot of people thought would happen.
But it wasn't, was it?
No. Anyway, 1 minute. Let me just remind you, you've got a competition. I just want to know these couple of players to win yourself a Sky Blue Fans TV mug. There's number one. It's probably a bit harder, this one. There's number two. Get your answers in, please, on the messages, and then we'll make a draw at the end of the show for somebody to win a mug if you can get them two right. Okay, a couple of other things that are going on just while we're here. We've got a couple of fans on Tuesday, 19th November. Leamington and Warwick have got their evening with the fans. Rodini and Lewis Binks are going to be there. No, that's the Bedworth one.
That's Bedworth.
That's the Bedworth one. That's members only, that one, I believe. And then Leamington and Warwick have also got theirs on the same night. And that's £10 for adults, £5 for kids. Free, if you remember. And that's at Racing Club Warwick, Hampton Road in Warwick, just down the road from the race course. Ben Sheaf and Jamie Allen will be there to answer your questions, hopefully. So, they're all good nights. So if you live anywhere in them areas, get yourself along to them. Should be very good. Should be very interesting. And then, I don't know, they might even answer some of the questions you've got on here tonight about the management. You never know. Okay. Claudia, you got some more questions?
I have, yes. I'm just looking at Christopher Rafal says Super Frank will sort the midfield out. No better man. Rick James says MR also missed Dave Body, who I feel he needed as much as AD, etc.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You got to remember, because Dave Body left, and also the whole sort of backroom staff, didn't they? But Dave Body, Tyrone Scope left as well. So all the people that were around Robbins and AD, if you like, during them times, the backroom staff, all left. So they had no one. He had no one really, I suppose, to turn to.
It's no different to any working environment. If you've got your confidants, we would call them, where you've got people you can lean on or have a chat with. Yeah. And if these people leave and you feel like you've got no one you can, lean off, basically, and see if they've got any ideas. I just felt, I mean, Miles has said this in previous shows before we went on holiday, how he looked like a bit of a lost, lonely figure at times.
Yeah,
You
because we
know,
were watching how often he seemed to sit down on the bench a lot, didn't he? He didn't come out. Whereas before, when Eddie was there, he used to come out and shout and that on the touchline. When Eddie used to come out and talk to him. Since Eddie left, he tended to sit down on the bench a lot more, didn't he?
Yeah, it changed. It definitely changed. Let's see what Day Sports Voter says. By saying he needed a tactician was also an indictment of the other coaches, wasn't it? He's saying they are basically there to put out the cones and carry the bibs. Well, yeah, because he obviously felt they weren't good enough, even though they were promoted, which is what I think has upset him. Steve Arcade, sad to see MR go, but I respect DK for what he did on Monday. Not many owners would be so open with their fans. Reassure me it's going to be a repeat of the Birmingham fiasco of last season. Robert Mason, Claudio Robbins' biggest and most consistent weakness was his tactics like formations and late subs. Still think we should have got longer. Eustace and Matt Fads for me.
Interesting.
On the up says somebody wants AD with back with Lampard.
Well, they do know each other from the Chelsea days. So
he didn't actually rule it out, did he? He says about he don't go back or something, but he didn't say no. It was great that the owner actually held a forum like this. I don't recall an open-ish meeting like this when Richardson and G&T and Robinson, all the CC era, good on him. I mean, yeah, there was no forum when we went to Northampton, was there? We just told we're going.
And it was raised a little bit on the night. Doug admits, he's as he's come in. There was two things. Remember, Claudio? Somebody was asking him who was advising him on the football side of things. Yeah. Obviously, he's a businessman with no football experience, and he admitted that he'd made mistakes over the JSBs, the boxes, the resale, and he had gone back on he'd made these decisions and they were wrong, and he went back on them, which in a way was quite refreshing. If he just want to get us to the Premiership, he's got to change a lot of things. People say, "Oh, look how many coaches we've got, and look at this and look at that." We haven't got the, if you look at us compared to other established Championship teams, we were a little bit behind with a lot of these things. Yeah. And Doug's tried to bring them all in, and Mark's sort of last man standing. So Doug has got to make these decisions, and like we said, this is a massive decision he's made, because he knows that not just Coventry fans, but the football world in this could, has been pretty shocked by this. I've got friends who are Man United fans and Leicester fans and Sunderland fans. I know, and they were all really, really shocked because they thought that Mark would be here forever and the longevity, but. I mean, Doug didn't really play on he did mention, was it 23 points in 23 games or whatever? That wasn't his main reason. In his mind, he's performed, so he has to make these bold decisions. And he is. He's got to get this absolutely right. Because if he gets somebody in, we'll talk about this, I suppose, in a minute, guys, who he might bring in. If he gets somebody in and they don't hit the ground running, or that we continue to lose and we're not up there in the January window or whatever, the fans, I think it could have the possibility of turning toxic.
Yeah. I've had to mute you, Ken. I've had to mute you because you've gone a bit funny again.
Was that Ken?
Yeah, it's gone a bit funny. I'll just read some of these out. Do I sound okay still?
Yes.
Mark Cunningham, before the forum, my radio was in for a good kick-in. Fair play to DK for telling the truth. My radio is safe. Dawn Cook, so why did DK only offer contracts to MR and AD and not a contract to Dennis Lawrence? He hadn't been part of the fallout, so why was he left out?
I think he wanted to go somewhere, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think he actually wanted to make a move, but who knows? He might have wanted to get out as well.
The new contracts were before the fallout, though, weren't they? Wasn't that last summer?
It was. Well, I don't know. All I know was he was never offered a new contract.
Yeah.
So who knows? It was never asked, actually. I mean, it could have been. The trouble is, we went there just wanting to know why he was sacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't put everything out in an hour, can you, about that? Yeah.
Anthony Pettifer, I think DK thinks we have the fittest squad deck. We were going to go up. I think MR knows it's a tough league and expectations were too high. This put added pressure on MR. War History Dad says, I don't believe anything DK said. Didn't feel like all the information was there at all. He's a very good spin man. Jack Saunders says, this is the best deck in recent history. Yet you sold KP on deadline day with no replacement. Does that mean we are stronger without him, or was that sale purely business? That was one of the questions that he wanted to ask, actually, Jack, on the night, and didn't get asked to ask the question. Robert Mason, I thought it was gross misconduct, and he can't speak as it's in his lawyer's hands. Don't forget, AV was opposed to paying $1 million for Big Vic. Imagine if we'd went along with that. AV, great coach. That's it. I didn't know about that. Chris Foster said, to be frank, but no thanks, Frank. Yeah. So let's see if Ken's still buzzing. Yeah, it's still buzzing, Ken. You might have to log out and log back in again, like you did last time. So, right. So where do we go from here then? Because he's crossed the Rubicon, didn't he, with the sacking of Mark Robins? There is no going back. We have to look forward. That's all you can do as a football fan. Who do you think we should go for? Because currently they've got this setup of coaches. I'm presuming they're going to look for a senior figurehead, somebody who's going to be respected, maybe, and somebody falls into that sort of new kind of coaching regime, like the modern day way of doing it, basically. I think Mark Robbins is kind of not that kind of manager. They're looking for a head coach, aren't they? So me personally, once he's got the 2 England games out, I've kind of warmed to it now, but I wouldn't mind Lee Carsley. I just think he knows the club, and he's that kind of modern day manager with the way we do things. What do you reckon, Vicky?
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. A lot of the other people that have been speculated about are going to want to bring in their own way of doing it, aren't they? So to a certain degree, it's going to have to be somebody that will fit into the structure that's been created. And yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, the cars has sort of gradually grown on me as the sort of weeks gone on. As somebody that I think that could probably come in and fit into that environment. I mean, that's why the timing is slightly strange as well, because they obviously did that in that massive recruitment drive in the summer to bring in like Reece and George, and the talk from the performance director was about how extensive that was to get the right people in. When you've got trouble going on already with like AD and Mark, and you don't know what's going to go on, it just seems strange to have done that on a bit of a piecemeal basis, because if you think there's a risk that Mark's going to go, which Doug must have always thought that was a risk, that this would never get resolved and they'd all go, it just seems strange that you wouldn't then look to try and recruit everybody all in one go, because it has created this problem now. You've brought people in, well, you're not going to sack all of them, are you? But equally, someone new that comes in is going to want their own people generally. So it's sort of that weird dynamic now about how you deal with that, which is another thing that makes the whole sort of timing of the way it's been dealt with a little bit odd. But yeah, I mean, there's people I'd prefer, but I don't think we can afford, some I don't think would entice here, and some I think wouldn't work under that structure. So I think probably when you've all of them out, the cars is probably my choice as well.
What do you think, Matt?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Lee Carsley. Sorry to disagree with you both.
That's fine.
I think he's done. I think he's learning his trade, and he's done a good job with the England and the 21s. Not so good with the England main team. I think what we're going to look at here. The key was in the wording in Mark's sacking, saying that we were looking for a head coach to fit into this role, not a manager. They said it's somebody who's going to come in with the new way of doing things, a modern way of doing things. So is he going to go for somebody? I mean, for example, Matt Bloomfield people would have said before this they'd never really heard of him. You know, he's done a great job at Wycombe. He's an up-and-coming manager, a good coach. But is he going to replace him with a League One manager with potential? Is he want to go with somebody like Lee Carsley, who knows the club, who might be a good head coach, who doesn't want to bring many of his own players in? Or is he going to be like what most of the fans are saying? Look, you've sacked Robbins. You're going to have to bring in a big name here. I mean, I'm not saying Doug's going to make his decision under any pressure, but you know, when you see the names like Frank Lampard and Ruud van Nistelrooy touted around, it's quite amazing, really, that they're being named with this club. But I think he's got to get a fine line between, you know, someone who really knows what they're doing, but someone who's going to be able to work with Doug. But I think whoever comes in is going to want to bring in a couple of their team. If it was Frank Lampard, for example, I'm sure he'd want to bring 2 or 3 in of his own. And where does that leave Reece Carr? Where does that leave George Boateng and the others? Or is Doug saying, you're not going to do that. You're not a manager. You're not bringing everybody in. I just want a head coach with an assistant coach, and you fit into our structure of the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'll just see if Ken's still buzzing. No, Ken's still buzzing. I don't know what he's
not the chair he's sitting on, is it?
I don't know. I think he's buzzing. It sounds like buzzing. It could be something else. Going for Guinness Book of Records longest passing of wind. Comical boxer. I read today that Ruud van Nistelrooy has been linked. What do you guys think of the speculation, him as a manager? Thanks, great show. Well, I know he did okay at PSV, but I think most people do okay at PSV, don't they?
His percentage record at PSV's good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vicky.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Vicky? Do you fancy a bit of Ruud on the touchline?
I wouldn't say no to that, no. I mean, and to be honest, I prefer him to Frank Lampard. I can't warm to Frank Lampard as a bit. I mean, if he comes in, I'm obviously going to support him, but I can't get excited about that. Whereas Ruud van Nistelrooy does make me think that I'd prefer that. But I mean, there's other jobs out there. I mean, there was talk today that he's been looked at for the Roma job, and you just think like Rome or Coventry, where you're going to go, really. I mean, so
yeah.
I
mean, on the night we were waiting to go in the press room, that we'd heard stuff like, there's been at least 60 applicants for the job.
Yeah.
And things like that. And now I'm told it's up to about 100 now. But I mean,
Well, I wrote down the odds just before I came on, and Lampard had gone to evens. Lee Carsley's gone 7-4, but the Ruud van Nistelrooy's gone from 40 to 1 a couple of days ago to 4 to 1 on Sky Bet before the show started. So people are obviously putting their money on him. I don't know if they can afford him or whether they want to get him in, but Ruud van Nistelrooy has had a good 10 years experience as coach now. He was with PSV under 21s or under 17s first, and then he went on. He was a Dutch assistant, wasn't he, at the 2014 World Cup with Hiddink, and he as I say, I think he's got 65% win rate at PSV. I mean, obviously different league, a great team, and he's done well in the short tenure at Man United. So he's certainly got the pedigree, and he's certainly probably got the style. I like the Dutch sort of style and everything. Whether he'd come here, I don't know. I think Roma have just gone back for Ranieri, haven't they? I think Ranieri's gone there for
really?
I think he's gone back for his third. I think he's been there twice before, so he's gone back for his third pop at that. But Frank Lampard's been the name on everybody's lips, hasn't it? Since this happened, he was the first big name suggested. Apparently, he's been spotted everywhere from Kenilworth to Coombe Abbey to Tyler. Not that I've seen him anywhere. Frank, again, differing opinions on Frank. Some people saying, he's got a really bad record, but he did okay with Derby and got them into the playoffs. I think he got Chelsea to a final, didn't he? He got the Chelsea to the. He did well with Chelsea. He didn't do well with Everton, but that was a chalice job really at Everton. I don't think many people would have done sort of well with that squad.
He couldn't buy any players, could he? And he had an embargo at Chelsea as well. Look, no manager has got a perfect record, whoever we have. Mark Robbins didn't have a perfect record till he came to us. It was like a good fit. That's football. Not all managers are going to come with like 80% records. It's
about the fit as much as anything, is it? And that's the thing, isn't it? And so, I mean, I'm not saying that Frank Lampard's like the worst manager or anything like that. It's just it doesn't feel like the right fit. To me, it doesn't feel like the right fit for our club, and that's just my personal feeling. And so people will have different opinions. I'm not saying that like he couldn't do the job, it just doesn't feel like the right fit for me. Just personally, and I think that's the most important thing, isn't it? Because you see this, there'll be lots of managers that just go to the right club at the right time, and it just works. And that's what we need, don't we? It needs to be the right person at the right time, so that we can just move forward, and then everyone will just forget about this whole like period, and we can just move back with some positivity, can't we?
Yeah, you're right, Vicky. And this I think this is why we've all been so emotional. It's because of the journey we've been on over the last 7 years, and it's because, as we know, Mark did it under those extreme circumstances. You know, going to Birmingham and the restrictions he had. I mean, he could have walked away at any time during those 7 years and said, "Look, I've had enough of this. I can't deal with this." And he did show. There's not a lot of loyalty in football, but he did show a lot of loyalty to us, and I think that's what upset us as fans. Last week, you know, a week on, we all feel. I think we're all still a little bit upset about it, and we're all still a little bit angry about it. But we're all looking at it subjectively now.
He wanted to finish the job off, didn't he? He wanted to get into that Premier League. That would have been like, I mean, had he done it, it just shows you how hard it is, though. Because had he done it, it would have been amazing. You know, and he was very, very, very close.
Sorry about that. My youngest daughter's texting me. Sorry about that.
Gavin says, Doug, very clever, stunned the room with the bombshell about MR and AV, took away all the anger, replaced it with shock. I would question how come none of this came out before with ex-players or current ones. I'd love to get Ken back in, but he's still a bit, see if he's still...
Ken's still buzzing.
Still buzzing. Wayne Litwood says, Ken has a habit lately of producing some strange sounds from this area. DK had to do the forum after he's seen the backlash he had from 90% of the fans. Also, it gave plenty of time to prepare what questions would be asked. But we didn't give the questions. I can tell you that now. He did not know what was going to be asked. I mean, it was obvious he's going to be asked why he was sacked. That's the main one, wasn't it? So I suppose he could have sorted himself out with that respect. But like I says, we got the email Friday morning straight away. It was landed, I think. Or yeah. That was
Doug was on Talk Sport on was it Monday or Tuesday? I forget now. But he did say that he'd wanted to. It was Tuesday, wasn't it? The day after, and he did say that he wanted to speak to the fans first. And I get what people are saying. You know, he fired Mark on the Thursday. He was quite quiet on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Apart from the announcement, and then obviously we had to go to Sunderland. Maybe he just wanted to get that game out the way. Reece Carr in charge, let the players and the fans concentrate on that. And he probably knew everybody's going to sing Mark Robins' name all through the game. And then he did have time to get ready, but like you say, Claudia, he wasn't preparing himself for any answers. The only question he knew was, why have you sacked Mark Robins? I say we weren't told what we had to ask, and he did answer most of it, and I do believe what he's told is the truth. I just don't think he's told us everything.
Yeah, I think he just needs to tell us what we need to know. I just think it is that he's obviously blamed him because he feels like keep going over and over this again, but he asked him to do a job. He didn't do it the way he thought he should have done it. The results weren't happening. He then felt he didn't think Mark could turn it around with what he got with him. And he didn't, as he said, he didn't want a situation where we end up in, League One and it's a problem. All the players will go. He said we'll end up with probably one, didn't he? And that's when Dean Austin, he said probably one player, and Dean, he says maybe not, which I thought was quite funny when he said that.
Yeah. Well, I think Dean Austin was brought along really because obviously he needed some support there, and also Dean Austin was answering the questions about recruitment, about the loans. We spoke. We did ask him about the loans, didn't we? Why was he so reluctant? Not to go in the loan market. We're one of the only clubs in the leagues that just don't have the loan players, which Dean Austin sort of, I thought, answered quite well. Don't know how you thought, Claudia. But again, I think he was sort of saying what Doug wanted to hear regarding that. And obviously Doug was saying we didn't want players over 30, sell on value and things like that. And I know that, we've discussed this in the past, people have, about how to get to the Premier League. You either throw a load of money at it and you risk and you gamble and you get into the Premier League. And when you get there, you do a Forest, Nottingham Forest gamble. They spent a lot of money. They've managed to stay up. Other teams don't spend, say Ipswich or something like that. Southampton might come back down. Getting there is a massive risk. Everybody in the Championship wants to get to the Premier League. Of course we do. But there has to be a plan. And if you look at teams like Brighton and Brentford in the past, they have had models that have got them up from the lower leagues by getting in players cheap, developing those players, selling them on for good profit, and reinvesting that profit into the squads to get up. And that's worked well with Brighton, and it's worked well with Brentford. And I think that's why we sold Vic and we've made money from him. We sold Hamer, we made money from him. The O'Hare situation was different. Obviously, we got him on a free and we've lost him on a free. It's one of those. So maybe, I'm sure we spoke about this in the past, that was that a way that Coventry can get into the Premier League is by following that sort of model. And I think
somebody asked the question. Sorry, Matt. Somebody asked the question at the end when we were chatting. There's a photograph of me talking to Dean Austin, and he was asked the question, how we really could do with a midfielder, box-to-box midfielder, somebody you get around the pitch more. And he kind of went, we've already got 6 midfielders, which to me is I understand we have, but he's kind of saying we've already got 6 midfielders. We've given the manager 6 midfielders, basically. So it was a weird one.
Like forwards as well. Yeah. I don't know.
He said about the loans, because Mark Robbins, I don't know if Vicky remembers this, Mark Robbins did mention about loans before, saying that it'd be better off with our own play. He wasn't keen on either, apparently, to start with. But obviously, when we had the chance he tried to, it's rumoured we're trying to get Matty James in right at the end of the transfer window. But for some reason, it didn't cross the line again. Now, we don't know why. So whether or not he wanted too much, or, the other people didn't fancy him, or, I don't know. We don't know, do we?
Vicky, what do you think?
Yeah.
I thought the whole point about the recruitment was interesting, and it was a valid point about the loan situation. Obviously, you can't bring a loan player in and just sit him on the bench because no club's going to allow that, are they? And I think we discussed before, like you said, Claudio, that Mark was not a massive fan of that either. But we've also had a lot of success in the loan market, haven't we? I mean, we've spoken recently about how a number of players that have gone on to be a success originally came in as loans, like Vic and Sheaf and people like that. That's an O'Hare. They've all come in like that originally, haven't they?
Yeah.
So it just, I don't know, it seemed like half a story. Like they were talking about how they brought in Wilson Edbrand and he only played 7 games. And I thought, well, you're never going to guarantee that a player's going to come in and play week in, week out, because you don't know how the fit's going to go. You don't know, like, you might think it's going to work really well and it might not. But other clubs manage with a squad and then also some known players to supplement that. So it just seems strange to suggest that we couldn't do that when we know there's gaps in our squad that could do with a bit of support. So, I mean, like at right back, like Milan is exposed to no support at all, really, because we've got no one really to be playing properly. So a lone player there, you can say, well, you'll get some game time because Milan can't play every week. So between the two of you, you can share that role through the season. And that's what we've done with previous lone players. So that just seems a bit strange. What I'd have been most interested about is when Dean Austin made the throwaway comment that there was a couple of ambitious players they looked at and they couldn't get them over the line. I wonder who they were, because that might have been some exciting signings.
Don't you think, though, if you look at the bench at Sunderland, I mean, that proves that, 6 injuries in this squad and we're down to...
we've got nothing. It's like you said earlier, Matt, like you said about, Doug said the squad's the strongest we've ever had and you didn't really agree. I think I'm sort of fall between the two of you, because I think he's right. It's the strongest squad we've had in a long time. If you look at the squads we've had in the last 10 years, I'm not sure that you could find one that's better than this squad, but it's still too weak. We've still got gaps. So yeah. I think he's right that it's the strongest squad we've had, but he's wrong if he thinks it's enough without some additions to get us to where we want. So I think it's between the two, really.
I mean, he also said, didn't he, that they were looking at a left back, left wing back, right wing back. He mentioned positions, and it didn't kind of work out, is what it was implying. I don't know. It's interesting that you also said about McNally there. They did do the thing where they wanted to try and buy him, and they priced him out of the market, didn't they? Basically, which was a shame.
Burnley were bitter about O'Hare, weren't they?
Yeah, Dudley. Dudley Doyle came on better than they thought he would. That was interesting because, to be honest, the first couple of games I thought it was a bit ropey. That away game at I say away game, it was at Burton, wasn't it? The cup match where he played. He wasn't great at all that night when we got hammered 4-1, whatever it was, or 4-0. That wasn't too good, was it? But it's interesting what he said about Esbrand, where Mark wanted him, and I don't know. I didn't think he was that great, and he only started him 7 matches. He said, so of course. That upsets things, other clubs, doesn't it? The way he was saying, and we've said this as fans watching it, saying that I think he needs to play these players. You can't put a bench. I mean, Doug King said you can't have a bench full of lone players. They have to play if you want to keep relations up. I see.
There were some other options as well, and a couple of free agents with experience might have been good because I think another integral part is losing Fads. Matty Godden going, Liam Kelly. And even though those players weren't playing a lot last season, they were good people to have around the changing room. They were good people to have on the training ground, a bit of experience there. And I definitely think we sort of lack that leadership. I know Ben Sheaf, is a great captain and everything, but even a couple of, even not loan players from other clubs, but free agents, get them in. So we got some more numbers and a bit of experience in there.
Yeah. I think that sometimes that's what our problem is, isn't it, with the people like the free agents. So, people commented a lot about how many millions we've spent on players, but I think our budget, wage-wise, is still like one of the lowest in the league, isn't it? And so the problem is then you've got free agents that are like would be in addition to most squads, and there's teams that can pay them better than we can, and so we lose out, and that's the problem sometimes, isn't it? And that's why we probably sometimes have to overpay for players that we want to get in, because we've got to get them in, and we can't always necessarily beat teams from a wage or sort of that perspective. So it's about like building the squad in other ways, and it's not always ideal, unfortunately, is it?
No.
I got some more comments here. Is Ken still buzzing? It's still buzzing. Maybe use your iPad, Ken. change your form of communication. What's going on in that part of Coventry? All right. Right, let's see then. So Mark R says, and it's not the Mark R, is it? He says, I really hope the new head coach is given the job because of their ability rather than just being a shiny thing. We've been there before with Butcher and Reed, and look what happened. Comical boxer. But out of 100 CVs, how many are actually credible? 6 or 7? Assassins Unite. Lampard did a great job at Derby, got into the playoff final, did well at Chelsea under a transfer embargo. Everton didn't work out, and the few Chelsea games as interim were a waste of time. James Hollyoak says, but no clubs ever came in and try and poach Mark in 7 years. I mean, there's always, his name was always bandied around if there was a job coming up. But we don't know, do we? If he was ever offered anything. Mark Cunningham, I would have liked Leroy Rossini, not overhyped and just gets on with the job. Well, we said that, didn't we?
So that would have been one of my favourites.
We said he could use Mark Robbins' sat-nav and lives on the same street, doesn't he?
Well, they're probably not anymore because he's managing in France.
That's true, yeah. Sausage,
a bit of a commute.
It didn't come out about Vivash because managers, coaches always get severance pay. Me, Ellison, everyone who has been mentioned is going to use City as stepping stone. Any success, they'll jump as soon as they get an offer. Lampard, Rude, etc. Get Warnock in for promotion work on coaches we have. Blimey, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I wonder if the job Vincent Kompany did at Burnley and how it puts him in the shop window for the Munich job is a plus to some of these ex-players' coaches.
I think the thing is as well, in this day and age, managers don't stick around that long. I mean, Mark being here for 7 years is unusual, isn't it? So I'm sure that whoever comes in now is only going to be here for a couple of years at the most. It won't be a long-term thing again. So even if they do use it as a stepping stone, as long as they do a good job while they're here and move us forward, then we have to just take that for what it is, don't we? Like, accept the good work they do, they move on, and we move on with them, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, he said it, didn't he? He said about we had something special here, and he broke it up, is what he said, basically. So I'm not sure. Doug was implying that he wasn't expecting the team to be broken up like it was. So, but you're right, Vicky. It is unusual to have somebody at a club for so long.
Yeah, was he the third after Pep and the guy at Harrogate?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark was like the third, so 7 years. But I don't think there was anybody anywhere near him behind that in the Championship. And as we know, it is a revolving door. Like we said, whoever Doug gets in, how much time is this new head coach going to have? Because the interesting question, Claudio, on the night was from somebody who said the 5-year Premier plan, is that continuing as it is, or does that start again with this new manager? That was one of the questions. I don't know if you saw that on the... Yeah. It's not on the transcript, so I don't know if they've missed that bit out. Yeah, somebody asked that question, yeah.
He said that it's kind of like see how it plays out was almost his reaction to that. It was
an ambiguous answer, yeah. So are we 2 years into this plan, or do we start again when the new head coach comes in? So that's going to be interesting.
But he is right though. We're not out of anything. We've got 31 matches, so he's obviously thought, but we can't turn it around with Mark still here. We need to change it. And we've got loads of games left. It can happen still that you're getting. I mean, he's pretty much saying we probably won't get top 2, but there's nothing to say we can't get in the playoffs. And we still, if everyone's fit, from what I gather, Hadji Wright's going to be out for weeks now. That's what I've heard. Yeah. So that's not helping things. I mean, basically, for us to get out of this division, we have to sort our defence out. We're letting in far too many goals. End of. And that's something that needs to be addressed. So we need probably somebody to come in who's very good at setting up teams that you don't let goals in all the time, or keep the opposition away from your goal as such.
Well,
it's silly mistakes, isn't it? Because it's not like I can't think of a single game this season where we've been like consistently under the cosh. Like you're thinking, we're going to crumble in a minute. Generally, we're playing like okay. Like we're in the game, and then we make a silly mistake, concede a goal, and you're thinking, again. But it's never like any team's been like bombarding us and we can't cope with it. So it's never that type of sort of game, is it? It's always just that we make a silly mistake, someone switches off at the wrong moment, and then we concede the goal. So they're the sorts of things that should be able to be ironed out because they're not fundamental issues. It's just that people need to concentrate better, and you'd think that would be part of this whole new sort of psychological thing, really, wouldn't you? That's meant to be in the club now, and that doesn't seem to do anything about that at all.
I'm going to ask you a question, Matt. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you been entertained this season?
Oh, a half here, a half there, but yeah, not like we have seen over the past few years. But one thing we have done again is chopped and changed like formations and players in the positions, and it's almost like over the past few years we've found a default formation to play, changing from a 4 going to the 3 at the back or the 5 at the back or whatever. And it seemed to me over the those games we were chopping and changing the starting lineup quite a lot, and whether we were playing with this 3 at the back or this 4-2-3-1, trying to really fit the players into where they needed to be. And it looked to me like the players sometimes were lost in different positions. And before the game, we all meet up, don't we? Everybody's a manager in the pub or the bars before. Everybody can pick the team. You'd see the lineup and go, oh, there's a bit of a curveball. He's put Kitchen at left wing back or whatever it was. He was trying lots of different things. And this we'll get it right soon. The players need to settle. Some of the teams that came to play at our place, they look very settled and they've got their formation sort of sorted out. But you're right, Vicky. Up until the Derby game, we were top of the league for missed clear chances in the Championship. 27, right? The final margins. Watford away. Had you right hits the bar in the last minute with his header. We've played well, Claudio, in first halves or second halves, not really over 90 minutes, but you've seen enough there in certain games to think, that's the Coventry of old. But we've been very, very, very inconsistent, and we've been conceding, like you said, Vicky, lots of poor goals. Just turning off, switching off, conceding the goals. But that's this league. It's so unforgiving. You've got to set up well, and you've got to get your formation right. You've got to get your defense sorted out.
So that's where this elite tactical coach comes in, then, doesn't it? Which is what he's on about.
Exactly.
I think we've had 16. Yeah. I've heard on another pod we've had 16 lineup changes in 17 matches.
Yeah,
which is extraordinary, really. That's virtually every game. Something's been swapped around with or without injuries.
I think the only time we started the two same lineups was it after the Tottenham game. I think was it Tottenham and Norwich. I can't remember. But yeah, 16 out of 17. Well, if you're playing out there and you've got a different goalkeeper behind you, or you've got somebody different at centre half next to you, played football myself, and you get used to the starting lineup. You get used to what the players are doing around you. And there's no doubt about it. We've got some fantastic players. There's no doubt about that. It's just we've got to get somebody in who's going to find a formation that suits the players we've got, become more solid. I think the goals will come. It's a shame about Hadji, right? Because obviously he's our best goalkeeper. But then, Mason Clark's got to step up now. Sims has got to step up now. So, whoever comes in, I think they'll have their own way in doing it and their own identity. And, it might be refreshing. We all love Mark and we love what he did. This new guy coming in, it could be refreshing for us.
And also, because we haven't got a director of football, which somebody asked about, we have, as a club, we haven't really got an identity of playing, have we? Because if you bring somebody in to do that job, you play that system throughout the lot, from the kids all the way through, academies all the way through. Every team is playing the same way all the way through the club. We haven't really got that, have we, at all? So that's the only thing. That's what I regretted on the night. I just wanted to know if whoever they brought in, will they have an identity of how the club needs to play going forward and stick with it? Obviously, you got plan A, plan B, but what's the main identity? Are we free-flowing wing players? Are we a pressing team? Are we a low block team? Are we, more bodies in midfield than you need kind of team? I don't think we've got an identity anymore. We did in League One, I think, and when we did with Vic and Hamer, we knew what the game was. It was on the counter-attacking football. That's what we really played, and it worked because of the play you got. I don't feel we've got an identity of how we play. It's weird. I mean, we've got players who play out of position this season. That's what I've seen. That's what's happened a lot of.
I was going to say, Claudia, what's slightly odd is that because we brought in people like Efron, we sort of thought that the identity this season was going to be like some wingers get some balls in, and we haven't done that at all, really. So the signings that we made and then the way we played haven't really matched. So it's that's a little bit odd.
Yeah, I agree, Claudia. I think some of the teams we had, the League One promotion team, for example, there was an identity that season, wasn't there? You knew what everybody was kind of doing. You knew where the goals were going to come from. And I say with the Vic team, well, that was like, look, 10 men, get the ball, give it to Vic. We were that was it. But no, I mean that team had the identity. There was a high press. There was Callum O'Hare playing in that 10 role. Hamer was picking the ball up in the middle and it was getting it out, and Vic would get it anywhere. So we did have an identity. Last year, do you think we did? I mean, we had a lot of players to settle in last year. I think we chopped and changed quite a lot last year, really. And it wasn't till November that we sort of got going. But I think it started to gel last season. But like you say, you can't keep chopping and changing your lineup and your players in those positions. Like you say, Vicky, I thought Mason Clark would be like a left, Sakamoto right. These wingers getting the balls in, and then I think we've got 4 strikers at the club now. Sims right, Asante and Norman. And you think, okay, we've got the 2 strikers. He's got to play 2 up front then. If you've got 2 strikes like that, play two up front. And sometimes his formations work. I thought, the formation at Watford away, as I say, the first half, we were absolutely brilliant. And that formation really worked against Watford. I know you have to adapt, but you're right, Claudio. You've got to get that identity that Coventry are going to come here. This is how they're going to play, and we've got to try and counteract that.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens when the new guy comes in. In some ways, I want it done as quick as possible. I'm kind of glad. I was kind of glad there was nobody there Monday night in the end. It would have been great to have the reveal, wouldn't it? But it's not going to happen. Because the first thing I said was, we turn up the CBS. If the Sky Sports are there, Sky cameras, ITV, somebody's there. But there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing.
No,
and,
I think we might get a new manager before we get Ken back, by the looks of it.
I know. and we sat there.
And Ken's gone for his interview.
And I think it was kind of good that we didn't have somebody, because that would have looked like Doug King had been looking behind the manager's back.
Well, if somebody had been there, there's no way then. I mean, even if he had somebody in mind, he said he didn't, but even if he had, there's no way. I think that focus was just, I have got to answer the fans. I've done something absolutely massive here. And, I've got to do this. Like we say, I still think the split is 50-50. We've gone over this quite a lot, but we've got to move on. We've got to move on. I would ideally like somebody in before the next game, but how do you feel, you two? I mean, I thought the second half at Sunderland, I thought we were terrific. Going 2-0 down against the league leaders. I mean, Sunderland fans, might not agree, but I don't think they're a brilliant top of the league team. They've been playing well. And they obviously deserve to be there on the points they've got. But we looked a bit lost at 6s and 7s in the first half, but that second half performance was brilliant. And the lads, I'm really pleased for the team, and I'm pleased for all the fans for that. So I've got no problem with Reece Carr and George taking it for a little while. I just want Doug to make the right decision. And then we all move on. We all have to back that manager, as as weird as it's going to be. But we've got such a good thing going. It could all go so badly wrong. So that's what Doug's just got to get this appointment right.
Yeah, well, I've got the picture quiz, which I've just put. Guess who they are? That's number 1. I can't remember which order you did it now. So it's either number 1 or number 2. And this guy here, which I got the first one.
Yeah. Well, it's Wayne Littlewood's relative. I know that.
Well, we've got loads of comments as well.
Did you get them both?
Did I get them both? No. The second one looks familiar, but I can't quite place who it is.
Yeah.
Which is too mad, and I'll be interested to say.
Have you noticed anybody with the right answers at all?
Well, I don't know who both of them are, so I don't know. I don't know who the second one is, so I don't know if anyone's got that.
I'll private message you. Bear with me.
I think some people have got the first one right. It's who I think it is, because they've said the same. But I don't know about
straight away, Claudio, but not the second one.
Sorry, bear with us while I'll give the answers.
Oh, someone has said that. Yeah, so if the first one's who I think it is, and someone's got that right.
All right, I've seen somebody, at least one person's got them both right.
Well done.
Right, so there's this guy Thielen, isn't there, which I've seen a couple of people have mentioned that no one's mentioned yet, who's at Aberdeen and seems to have turned him round. He had a good record in Sweden. Yeah, why not a foreign manager? Why not a sexy Spaniard? That'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
Somebody put someone on Facebook, and I should have made a note of the name, and it was someone foreign, and they'd managed at a few different clubs, I think in Germany and the Croatian under-21s and stuff. And so sometimes you think, like, somebody like that, because I mean, people like that have come in, like Danny Roll, and I suppose even like Farker to a certain degree, when they first came, none of them had got any sort of real championship experience, but they've built up coaching and managerial experience, haven't they? So sometimes if there's someone out abroad that can do that job, it doesn't have to be somebody that we know if it's the right fit, I guess. I suppose that just takes a bit more research, doesn't it, by the club to make sure that is the right fit.
Yeah, well, this is from Sea Dog, I won't read it all out. It's too much there for me. I think it's tactical more than skill issue. We need a playmaker 100%, which is what I was trying to get at. And I don't think, I don't think he quite understood that. We're definitely lacking that something special. Because you say the League One season, the amount of games where there was little balls pushed through to Matty Godden from midfield, the little slide passes, wasn't there, where he used to score. We hardly do those now. We hardly.
Well, the goal against Sunderland was the classic one, wasn't it? You know, he just played through there and that finish across like that. That's what I say. We had a sort of style of play and everything. And I still think, you know, we've spoken about the squad. And, you know, as I say, we all agree that we're short. There's no doubt about that. You can't lose what we've lost and you know, rely so heavily on the academy players. I think it's great to have an academy player on the bench for experience. But in this league, you do get a lot of injuries. And, you know, as I say, when we've got 6 out, it just hits us so badly. So, it's going to be, this whole appointment's going to be very, very interesting.
Is a good question. I'll start with you, Vicky, from Finn. Which team do you prefer, the playoff semi-finalist team or the FA Cup semi-final team?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one, that is, isn't it? Oh.
Well,
that's it. Oh, no, you go then, Claudia.
Well, simple answer for me: playoff, final, semi-final.
See, it's not simple for me because I'm thinking if you're looking at the overall team, like all of the team, that would be the FA Cup for me. But if you're looking at a couple of players that stand out above everybody else, then that's the playoff team, isn't it? And actually, if Hamer hadn't been injured, I still think that might have turned out differently that day. That was a big loss to us. So I think you've got a couple of players for that playoff team. I think if you were looking at the overall team, the whole team, that it'd have to be the FA Cup one. I mean, imagine the FA Cup one adding in Hamer and Vic. I mean, we'd be champions if we had that team, wouldn't we? Really, I think.
Ken's still buzzing away.
Still buzzing. Good points from both of you there. I think for me, the playoff team I thought the substitutions in the FA Cup semi-final were brilliant. You know, when Tavares came on and Jay De Silva and that, you know, they really made the difference. And we looked so fit in extra time that team was brilliant. But for me, I just pips it, the playoff team. Like you say, Vicky, if Hamer had stayed on, I think we'd have gone on to win that game. You know, we probably wouldn't be having this particular conversation now. So, but yeah, good question. Very good question.
No, we probably will. We've talked about why he sacked him after we got relegated, did so well getting into the Premier League.
Like the Bob Edwards type situation, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Gavin Collins, don't rule out King keeping Carr in the role. Cheap option for him. He doesn't really like paying out the big bucks on wages. Rumoured Hamer comeback, O'Hare, etc., never happened.
They'll be back next Saturday, won't they?
So, Richard Jenkins, what sort of contract and length will the new head coach get, do you think? Doug seems to like getting people tied down long-term contracts. I'm going for, I think, 18 months or 2.5 years. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think about 2 years. I think he likes the long contract with the players, and you can understand why, because that gives you the financial security, doesn't it? If you've got a decent player on 4 years, then you've still got time for them to develop a salary or make a profit. I think he's probably learned a lesson because he probably thought that was the right thing to do with a manager as well. And actually, it is a different dynamic, isn't it? And I think he's probably learned a lesson there that was the wrong thing, and it's cost him like money. So I think we'll be looking at 2 years this time.
Yeah, because the 4 year was to protect him as well, wasn't it? Because he probably thought he would get stolen off us, and of course it didn't happen. And then, so I think a lot of clubs only go for 2 years. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think like 2.5 years. I think he did say, didn't he? He doesn't want a revolving door because it's going to cost him a lot of money. You know, if he puts somebody on a 4 year and they're not doing well after 18 months and he's got to fire somebody again, then there's more money involved in the payoff and everything. So I think whoever comes in is going to have a say on signing some people in the January window. So I'll give him the rest of this season, you know, to try and, you know, salvage something and get something out this season. Like you said, there's still plenty of games left, and then a good 2 years there. So yeah, I'd go for 2.5 as well.
Oh, I got a message from Simon Wells. You know Simon Wells?
Yes, I do. Hi, Si.
He says, that Matt Bry's bro, top man. He reckons you're a top man.
Bry's my brother, by the way. Yeah.
Jay Kent, he says, listen back to the interview. He was saying about people's roles in the club, and when he was meant to use a common name like John or Mike, he did at first, and he dropped in the name Robbie. Oh. Hey, Robbie Savage. Danny Drury, do you know if my comment was read out about why does Doug call our squad a deck? It's because he's a gambler, basically. We've got Arsenal watching us. Of course, we'll be playing them next season when we amazingly get promoted via the playoffs. Big up, Coventry City, top channel. Keep up the good work. Used to play them on a regular basis, didn't we, Ken? Can he say yes without buzzing?
Yes.
Please, somebody buy Ken a new laptop. Something. What's going on? Jay Kent, it's weird. It was great for about half an hour. It went funny, didn't it? Jay Kent, Matt is right. As weird as it may be, we need to back the chairman and the manager. It's interesting when he said we needed a jolt. That was interesting, wasn't it? What do you think he meant by that, Matt? That was an interesting thing, wasn't it?
Oh, I think that's like business speak, really. I mean, we've certainly had a jolt when everybody woke up on Thursday morning. Yeah. I mean, it jolted the football world. So, but I don't think he meant that. I think he's saying, as we've just gone over, things had become maybe stagnant. Things weren't going right, and he just needed to freshen it up right now. And that's his way of saying, look, I've done it. I've made this decision. It's a massive jolt. And, I've got he'll live and die by that decision.
Yeah, because I said after when they asked me a question, I said I felt like we were flatlining. We weren't going to get relegated, but I just felt like we were doing nothing. We weren't going anywhere this season. We'd probably, I don't know, we know what we're like. We'd probably beat Sheffield United, lose against Burnley. We'll probably lose at home to, Cardiff, then win the game at Millwall away. It'd be that sort of thing, won't it? But we need 4 points now every 2 games to get really near the playoffs now. That's how hard it's going to be, I think. So, yeah, it was a strange thing to say, wasn't it? What do you reckon, Vic? It did come across weird, that did.
Yeah, it almost then gave the illusion that he was saying, "I've just decided that I needed to jolt everybody, so I've just sacked him because that would do that," which obviously isn't what he was saying in the context of everything else he said, but it was a weird expression, and I think Matt's probably right. It's just probably maybe a business expression he's used before when he's used it in a slightly weird setting, because it was a bit odd.
Jolt and Deck, yeah, we won't forget those names, will we?
The Deck, that was just weird all evening, human using Deck. I just thought, this is just weird.
I saw a great picture where somebody had put with Deck and it got Rant and Deck. I thought it was quite I like that, Rant and Deck.
Yeah.
So, everyone, this is from James Hollyoak. Oh, bit of light chat now. Everyone see the new retro Umbro CCFC range. Nice. Well, if you can see behind my shoulder, that shoulder.
Yeah, very, very nice stuff. Very nice. I saw it earlier on.
You can see the original one. That's the original one there.
Well, that's before my time, but I really like the blue one. That they're probably going to get a bit more money out of me, unfortunately.
If I put that on now, it's a bit snug. Put it that way.
While that question's been asked, I think that's a good point. If you look at things, let's look at some positive things. We've talked about the training ground, being a lot better now, up to a championship standard, and the things he wants to change within the club. I think just things like having a club shop and the situation at the ground and the marketing and that side of things this season, because we've criticised that in the past, haven't we? You're ordering shirts, they're not ready or whatever. But look at us, we're all buying the stuff. I mean, I think the marketing side of things and taking the kids up to the club shop costs you a bomb, but don't you think that's all so greatly improved and really good?
Yeah.
I got my advent calendar already.
Too busy eating chocolates, look.
Well, it has improved massively, and it's kind of slowly bringing itself up to date, because it was shocking for ages, wasn't it? But ultimately, it sounds daft. People just think, I just want to see us win football matches. Yeah, which is the other side of it. And how much do people want to go up as well? This is the other thing, because I do hear a lot of people saying, I want to stay in the Championship. I like it in the Championship. We're going to win more games. It's going to be more enjoyable, blah, 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 blah. But as a club, I mean, like that Luton guy came on, going up, save the club, basically. They're sorted now. And also, if we go up, if people don't like Doug King, that's where he might likely sell the club, because we've got something to really sell.
I think, well, there's those of us that are old enough to remember the Premiership days. So we've been there, we've done it. Who'd have thought that day we got relegated to Villa Park that it would, we'd still, what would have happened to us? We all assumed we'd go into the Championship for one season and we'd come straight back up. You win away at Stockport, you think this is fantastic, we're going to do really well. And look where the club went over that time period. So no one has a divine right to be in that league. As personally, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I think it'd be fabulous to get up there. Like you say, one, it set up the club, and two, it puts you in the window that if Doug does want to sell it and make some money, and somebody else comes in and buys you, fantastic. I know, like the Luton fan said that, but I know an Ipswich fan the other day on Twitter said it's the worst thing ever. He doesn't like it. The atmospheres aren't the same, not the same intensity, but it's a completely different league. But I think ask any Cov City fan. That's our aim, isn't it? Being at the bottom of League Two, we all want to be back in the Premier League. We all wanted it to be remarked, but it's not going to be. So we've got to. I think we've got to aim and get back there. I think it'd be fantastic for the club.
Well, my next door neighbour's a Forest fan, and the first season was hard, but he's really enjoying it now. They had to get through that first season basically to, keep themselves up there. And I mean,
that first season in the Championship wasn't easy. Like when we went from League Two, League One, and into the Championship, that first season there was a bit of a struggle, wasn't it? Because that's quite. So you've got the League Two, League One sort of standard, then it's quite a big jump to the Championship, and it's obviously an even massive jump to the Premier League. But that first league, when we were trying to get our feet, wasn't the easiest season. And I guess it's just the same again, isn't it? You have to just do your best to try and stick it out and stay up and hope that you can scrape that through, even if it's 1 point above the bottom three, and then you can build on there like Forest have done. But even if you come back down, you've got all that money then, haven't you, to rebuild again, and you're just in a better position financially. But we need to go up, because my dream was to go and see Coventry at Wembley. That's happened. My dream was to see us win some stuff. That's happened. My next dream is to see us in Europe. So we need to get back to the Premier League so that can happen. So that's the next. The next dream.
I have to try and remind me here. Was the COVID season? It was when we got promoted. That's first season back. It was through COVID as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there's no fans. It made that harder, didn't it?
And I think that kind of was a good thing for us, because there's less pressure, wasn't there? Because there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Probably helped.
Yeah, there'd been a lot of negativity, I suspect, at some of the games that season if there'd have been a full stadium. So yeah, it probably did us a bit of good, because by the time the fans were back the season after, we'd sort of got a bit settled. We got a few exciting players in, and so that made it better then, didn't it?
Yeah.
We consolidated, Vicky. You're absolutely right. And then obviously, the return to the CBS, the Rico, and we've gone on to become an established Championship side. So I'd be interested to. You should ask everybody that question, actually, Claudio, about getting into the Premier League. Let's see what everybody's thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll ask Ken, but I think he's buzzing at me. Look, here he goes. Buzzing, Ken. Yeah, am I? He says. We can't hear what he's saying. I've muted him, but I think you need to come round here and do the show from my house, I think, at the minute. So right, Mark R. I might be wrong here, but I don't feel there's a feeling among our supporters that will be the new manager. Trevor Merriman says Sheffield United will be interesting game. Fans singing Mark Robbins, fans welcoming new head coach, applauding Hamer, abusing O'Hare. I want to ask Trevor a question, actually, if you can answer me in time. But do you have a brother who used to play for Coventry in 1987, played in the youth team, maybe the cup final? We definitely had a Merriman play for the team. I was just thinking that the other day. The things you think about. Scott Beasley, we will always support the new manager, but we'll never support the decision to sack MR. I think that's a good way of putting it, Scott, for a lot of people, actually. Yeah. Support the new manager, not too happy about the decision to sack Mark Robbins. I think that's that'll be, I would say, 75%, 80% of the fan base. Yeah. Looking at socials and all the rest of it. Mark R, will there be shorts to go with the new retro shirts? They were obscenely tight back in the day, especially Stuart Pearce's. My God, they were tight, weren't they? Those huge thighs. Steve Arcade, agree with Matt. The CCFC marketing game is really on point. Lots of good merch, lots of great retro stuff, and a superb social media presence. It's refreshing to see. Custo Audio blames Craig Bellamy for getting us relegated. The aim has to be get back in the Prem. That's J.K. Kent. This is from Finn. We have made contact from the planet K-Pax. J. Kent, I don't fancy bidders against Salah. You see that goal he scored at the weekend, Salah? Or was it the Champions League match? Some of the goals are incredible, really. Sky Blue Heaven 87, Mike Ashley will probably end up with the club. And Mark Cunningham, I want Premier League. The standard of the match officials in the Championship is shocking.
It doesn't get much better, does it?
Hey, did you see the guy? Is it Coote? The guy who's been suspended, whatever, talking about the game. He refereed the Oxford Cov game. So it was too small a match for him. Didn't think he should,
No, what an idiot.
28,000 people there that night.
Yeah, I didn't realise actually till I saw the picture of him actually refereeing the match that who he actually was, and I've never liked him as a referee. So yeah.
Every Premier League ref that's come to us without VAR, I think, have been useless.
Useless, yeah.
They don't make a decision, do they? It's really weird. I'm not being keen on them. Trevor Merriman, no. Claudio, unfortunately not. Oh, never mind. James Holyoke, yes, we need the money. If we get to the relegation the following season, so be it. The parachute payments would be nice. Which, our luck, we'll get promoted. We'll get relegated. Like that did last time, and we never got the parachute payments.
Well, it's like Vicky said, when we obviously won the FA Cup, we were deprived of going to Europe that season because of the ban on British teams playing in Europe. So as a young
bit
kid,
of bad luck over the years, haven't we? I mean, it's like the COVID season as well, when we never got to properly celebrate. Well, not the COVID season, not the season before that ended prematurely because of COVID, and robbed us of our chance to properly celebrate League One champions. I mean, like that's just little things like that happen quite often to us. We've not had a whole lot of great luck with like timings of little bits and bobs over the years, which is a shame.
But unless you're my youngest daughter, who's like 11, who actually said at the start of the season, "Where are we staying down in Wembley this year, Dad, or not?" I said, "Well, we don't go there every year." Well, she said, "I do." So yeah, it's. I think that's another good thing. I think I always like to bring a bit of positivity into these conversations, and myself and all of my friends who have watched City all our lives, every single one of our kids are JSBs. I think that's another positive thing that's happened over the years. I was one of the original JSBs, but now it's great to see the amount of kids who've got season tickets. It's great to see the fan zone full. It's great to see us with so many JSBs and all the kids wearing the kits. My daughter's room's got, the calendars up, and they've both got all the kits. I mean, I think Madeline's my eldest has done 3 or 4 visits to Wembley. I mean, it's phenomenal, really. And it's great to see that they're all into it, because years ago it wasn't like that. You'd see kids walking around carving Liverpool tops, Man U tops, or Chelsea or whatever. So I think that's another great thing that we've got positive at the club, and some, that's the future generations. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good work around that. And I think not a day goes by when I don't see at least one person in a Cov shirt in Coventry. And years ago, you'd only see them on match day. You'd never see people walking around in Cov shirts, barely ever. Now, I can't go a day without. Every day I will see somebody and think, "Oh, Cov fan," and I think that's great. And definite positivity, Matt. Very good.
This is Richard Cook. I love MR, but in a way, it's a good thing he's gone because of his legendary status. If he had failed, then that would have been awful for him, and obviously things were on the slide. Finn thinks we need to own our ground. Do you think MA will sell? It needs a good refurbishment too. Lick of paint, jet wash. I like this. GLB boxing. David Coote doesn't want to referee, prefers to be on the line because apparently allegedly had a snort of something, didn't they? Colin Bramfield, can you tell me how many times this season we have played the first 11 in both games? I think it's definitely once, possibly twice. There was another game, wasn't there? I'm sure there's twice, actually. So
what was the question? The same 11 2 games running?
Yeah, I think it was twice.
We had the one where Sakamoto got injured, and so then the team that finished started the next game, didn't we? So I suppose that's almost the same.
Yeah, it's twice, isn't it? It's definitely twice, which isn't a lot, really.
No.
My claim to fame from LSD is Trevor Peake is my mother's cousin.
Cool.
Good player.
Yeah, definitely. JH, anyone going to take up DK's offer of a look behind the scenes of the performance department? That was
interesting, wasn't it? When he got asked about
the biggest sigh of the night, wasn't it? When he sort of went say, it's like you something else that's wrong. That's what it felt like. Yeah, he wasn't very happy, was he?
He defended her robustly,
Yeah, the stuff online is terrible. It's absolutely awful. It's all right. You could say, I don't think she's very good at what she's doing, but okay, leave it at that. You don't need to then start abusing and making all sorts of horrible derogatory comments. It's, Some people.
The thing is, well, most people, like 99% of reasonable people, just wanted to know what she actually was, what her role was, and understand that a bit better, because it's obviously something new. And so that's a reasonable question to ask that, but the abuse on top of that's just wholly unnecessary, isn't it?
Well, it was interesting from that, wasn't it, Claudio? Because he said from that question that led on to what Dr. Claire Roberts had been doing, and he robustly defended her and said, "Look, she's got 7 years' experience at Premier League level. She's very good at what she does. The gym had been bought in, which led on to him saying that they are Premier League fit already." Did you hear that bit in the transfer?
Yeah, which somebody says we had a load of academy players on the bench. He said we got 7 injuries, which is, that's just part and parcel of that can happen, can't it? Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll read out. Well, we'll do the picture round because I don't think, and we'll wrap up in a minute. So that is Callum Davenport, I believe. Yeah,
got him.
And that is Neil Wood.
Wow.
Cool. Well, the only person I saw that got both of those right was Ian Small.
All right. Well, you can get your mug when you come over. I'm not going to send it to France.
Well done, Ian. Well done.
Yeah. Also, we've got this. We've got Meet the Players, Leamington Warwick Supporters Club. Next, I'll be there because I'm part of the group. Rob Gurney he's hosting it. That's next Tuesday night at Race Club Warwick, and Bedworth have got their own as well at the Liberal Club, but that's members only. They've now got 500 members, I think. And I'm not sure they're taking any more on at the minute because they've got so many members, which is fantastic, actually. Looking at a couple of more comments. We will be back on Sunday night. Hopefully, Ken will have sorted out his sound by then. It's such a shame. Colin Bramfield reckons I know more than Mr. King. I should be the next manager. I don't know about that. There's a shirt. Chris Foster says there's a shirt in downtown Orlando. It's mine. Fantastic.
Brilliant.
GLB Boxer says Doug defending Dr. Claire, but wasn't happy with Lorna doing her job. He got a bit rattled, didn't he? Nino Kov says There's a Cov shirt up in Dumfries and Galloway, and it's mine. That's good to hear. You're right. Well, my cousins wear them in Italy, so that's great as well. So
it's always great when you see a Cov shirt anywhere, really, isn't it? It's like one of those where just like, oh yes.
well, and they don't. Like you say, you never used to see them. You never used to see them, and it's absolutely fantastic now. Right, Matt, thank you very much for coming on. We're going to wrap it up now. We'll be back on Sunday. Will we have a new manager by then? It'd be amazing, wouldn't it, if we got a new manager by then? I don't know.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Pleasure, Vicky. Pleasure, Claudio. Thank you very much.
Great to have you on. Great.
And to wherever Ken's gone, I'll see you soon, mate.
He's gone to the abyss of the internet somewhere. I don't know what's happened to him. But thank you very much for watching. And we'll be back on Sunday. And, there's bound to be something that's happened between now and then, surely. Aren't England playing? Oh, maybe not then.
I forgot about that.
Play up Sky Blues.
Sky Blue Fans TV, for the fans, by the fans.